Welcome to Rocket Performance Ltd. Rocket Performance provides technical services such as Vapour Blasting, alloy shot peening, ultrasonic cleaning, specialty alloy weld repairs, and specialty ceramic coatings. In addition to these services, we sell some really interesting products, including ACF50, corrosion block grease, and the family of Evans waterless coolants. So for today's video, we're going to do an aviation-focused Vapour Blasting project. This is a Continental O200 cylinder. And these engines, it's an integral cylinder head and cylinder barrel, air-cooled. This engine's used a lot in aviation applications, including Cessna 150s. So here's a shot of what the two cylinder barrels look like as they arrived into the shop. And a couple more shots here just to show what they look like as received. So one of the things we do before we put the parts in for Vapour Blasting, if the parts are received and if they're in an oily or greasy condition, we'll put them into our aqueous parts washer first. We'll clean the parts, get rid of as much oil and grease as possible so that we don't load up the Vapour Blasting process with any tramp contaminants. And then the parts go into the Vapour Blasting machine. At Rocket Performance, we use a Wet Technologies WT36 cabinet and found that to work very well for us. So one of the things about Vapour Blasting is that it's a high flow process, low pressure. As a result of the modifying or controlling the process parameters, the glass beads don't shatter on impact when we're using glass beads, and so you don't have to worry about driving glass beads into the substrate of the metal. It provides a nice clean part without causing any damage to it. It tends to sort of peen the surface closed, and because of this light peening action, it makes the parts look very original in terms of surface finish, and makes the parts quite resistant to picking up fingerprints and oil stains and so on. So just to show what things look like as we're progressing through the Vapour Blasting process, on the right is the part's been cleaned, and on the left it's all original. And a little more. And finally, we can see the cylinder on the right has been completely Vapour Blasted. The one on the left was in the as received condition. And this is an internal cylinder shot just to show you what it looks like when it's done. So all of the carbon has now been removed. It's completely clean, ready for any further downstream rebuild processes. Valve guides could be replaced at this point, seats repaired, reground, recut. Anything you would need to or want to do to this cylinder at this point, it's nice and clean and available for any of those services. So some of the other services that we offer, the first one is related to Vapour Blasting. We do a wet shot peening process, which is particularly good in alloy parts. Won't damage the parts, but will impart a compressive surface finish. So one of the issues with aluminum alloy parts is that when they're cast, the casting process, the hot metal's poured into the mold, and the parts cool from the outside towards the center. Because of the differential in cooling speed between outside and inside, it quite often ends up putting the outside of the casting in tension. Any of the parts that are in tension mode are more prone to fatigue failure when they're in service. So the idea of shot peening is to actually take that tension layer on the surface of the part and convert it into a compressive layer, minimizing future possibility of fatigue fracture. So this is a connecting rod that's been put through the Vapour Blasting shot peening process to put that compressive layer back onto the part. And above that you can see the almond test strip and its jig, which is used for measuring blast intensity and duration to make sure that we have the right application of media at the right pressure and the right duration to meet the requirements of this process. One of the standards that discusses this process and talks about the sort of the calibration and setup of the process is MIL S 13165C, and this particular part has been processed according to that standard. In addition to the wet shot peening, we also offer various ceramic coating systems, thermal barriers, thermally conductive coatings, and friction modifying coatings. So this is an example of a thermal barrier coating in a combustion chamber. It reduces heat transfer into the part, prevents carbon from attaching to the combustion chamber, so it reduces pre-detonation. And with the thermal barrier being in place and reducing heat transfer into the part, the cylinder head will run a little bit cooler, again minimizing the possibility of pre-detonation. And from a preservation perspective, if you can keep the products of combustion off of the combustion chamber and off of the piston crown, those parts will last longer in service. So here's an example of two pistons that have had thermal barrier coatings applied to the crowns and low friction coatings applied to the piston skirts. So again, the thermal barrier reduces heat transfer into the pistons, so the pistons will run cooler. It won't expand quite as much in the bore, and it's not necessarily a bad thing for high performance engines. And the low friction dry lubricant on the piston skirts reduces the coefficient of friction, and it would also give this engine a bit of run dry time in case it had a catastrophic lube oil system failure. In addition to those services, we provide water jet cutting. We can cut anything from light gauge metal up to 4 inches in steel and I think 6 inches in aluminum. We can either work from template pieces or from DXF files to provide the cutting services. This particular case is a no longer available copper head gasket, and you can see the new replacement that's been cut through the water jet cutting process. In addition to these services, we offer some great products. Lear Chemical Research manufactures ACF 50 corrosion block and corrosion block grease. These are excellent products for preventing corrosion. ACF 50 is used extensively in the aviation sector. It's a mill standard product, really good for non-ferrous parts, also popular with the motorcycle restoration crowd. Corrosion block is a little heavier, it's more intended for heavy-duty marine and industrial applications, and corrosion block grease is a fantastic grease, electrical dielectric, synthetic, waterproof, and compatible with all base greases. It also has a very high drop point temperature, so it's a great grease product. In addition to the Lear Chemical Research products, we also carry the Evans waterless coolant products. Part of the reason for doing that is as we're vapor blasting liquid-cooled engine parts, we would find a lot of corrosion damage as a result of the water and cooling systems. So this is an interesting alternate way of dealing with that issue. Since there's no water, there's no corrosion. With no corrosion, you get longer engine life. The product has a very high boiling point, 375 Fahrenheit, and a low freeze point of -40 Fahrenheit. Because it has such a high operating temperature range, normal operating temperatures, there is no system pressure. That minimizes the chance of blowing rad hoses off or anything like that, or losing seals. So high boiling point, when it freezes at -40, it actually shrinks, it doesn't expand, so you're not going to crack engine blocks. So it's really good for engines that are in deep storage. It's good for engines that are being operated at sort of broad operating temperature ranges. One of the recommendations from the FAA through a special airworthiness information bulletin for Rotex engines, the 912 series engines and the 914 series engines, anytime you have an engine with a liquid-cooled engine with an exiting water temperature of 248 degrees Fahrenheit or 120 Celsius, the FAA recommends that you use a waterless coolant just to minimize the possibility of having a cooling system failure. Anyways, works very good. So thank you for watching the video. Rocket Performance, we love questions, so don't hesitate to give us a call or drop us an email. I'd be happy to answer any questions about any of our products or services, and we look forward to hearing from you. Thank you, and bye for now.